Hello and welcome. You're watching News9. I'm Shweta Kothari. We're bringing you stories from the world of business policy and economy. First up, after online payments, digital loan, RBI lens is now on P2P lending. Reserve Bank of India has sent a list of questions for startups facilitating P2P lending as to answer a variety of questions on how they are conducting the lending process. Also on the show, new women's savings scheme has 500,000 takers. The Mahila Samman kitty has grown to 3,666 crore in the first 2 months itself. Senior citizen scheme has also got a boost after the budget announcements. Now, amid rapidly growing technological advancements in generative artificial intelligence, that is AI, there is now a set of normative guidelines that have been released by industry body NASSCOM. We will, of course, go through all those guidelines on this show. And ONDC on Monday launched a B2B, that is business-to-business transactions on the government-backed interoperable e-commerce network. What does it mean for businesses? We will be discussing right here on News9. And finally, Honda Cars has premiered its new sports utility vehicle, the Elevate, marking company's re-entry into the SUV space. All of that here on News9. Right here with me in the studio is my colleague Amit Ranjan. Also joining us at this point in time is Avijit Ghosh. I want to come to you, Avijit, directly. This is an important story that we've been tracking, especially with respect to post office savings schemes. You also flagged it this morning. It seems that Mahila Samman savings schemes has a lot of new takers. This was a scheme that was launched in the budget. Within the first 2 months, we're looking at massive savings coming in from women.
Yes, Shweta, good morning. And this is genuinely one of the bright spots that we can see in the papers this morning. It's very encouraging because, as you know, the current government has been trying to empower the woman. From first the woman child, the female child in 2015 with the Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana, which is already a hit, you know that. I see the current scheme, the Mahila Samman certificate, as almost a thematic contribution of the same. You basically start looking at the female child and then the grown-up adult woman as a continuation. And the sort of response that this has got in the limited period of time, only 2 months, is extremely encouraging. And look at the average deposits. It's more than 73,000 per account. Now, that I think is extremely important. I'm actually looking forward to another piece of data which I haven't found yet. That is the rural-urban divide in this in the response. If I can find that the response has been substantial in the rural segment, I'll be even more happy. And why me? I think everybody will be happy if the response in the rural segment among the rural women really overtakes that of the urban women. Because this is, if you look at the matrix, 2 lakh rupees being the maximum that you can invest. I think the rural women are the primary target of this small savings scheme. And this, if it takes up in the rural category, I think that is the best response that the finance ministry can be looking for.
Okay. And what is also interesting is that there's not going to be any TDS on the scheme. So I think that has also come in as some sort of relief, not just for rural women, but also for urban women who are looking at, Mahila Samman savings certificate as an alternative to various other savings schemes out there.
Yeah, you are true, because the TDS dragnet is actually closing in on all of us. There is hardly any instrument that is out of the purview of the TDS. So yeah, that's definitely another bright spot that you mentioned. That triggers actually a lot of response from almost anybody out there.
Mm-hmm. Right, and it's not just the Mahila Samman savings scheme, it's also the senior citizen scheme that's got a boost now. We're looking at the upper limit for which is doubled now, as a result of which we're seeing more and more senior citizens also queuing up at post offices.
Yes, you are absolutely correct on that. And the doubling of that limit it did the trick. The sudden surge, if you see the data, compared to the last 3 years, the sudden surge this year has been mainly due to the doubling of the ceiling. That's one. But I think, there is a small, I won't say glitch, but something that perhaps the government needs to address. Because see, most these senior savings citizen schemes, if you are a bachelor or a spinster, if you don't have a spouse, then I know of people who have hesitated to put their money here simply because now look, they are all senior citizens by definition, and if they are no longer there, they cannot open this account as somebody as a second a second account holder, so to say. So where does this money go, and how does the legal heirs, how do they really get it? So that, I think, is an area that needs to be communicated to the people, because I know of people who have hesitated to put in money. They haven't married, they don't have a spouse, and they have hesitated to put in money in their single name. I think that's one of the areas that the finance ministry or the post office or the banks, they need to communicate that what the rules are clearly, and perhaps more people will be joining in that case.
Okay, that is extremely interesting, an important lacuna there that perhaps post offices, banks, RBI have to clarify on whether your spouse could be a beneficiary, so that people who are single, people who do not have a living existing spouse, can also utilize these saving schemes and save money. This is also an indicator, perhaps, Avijit, of how people are increasingly depositing more and more in post offices, in FDs. We've seen an uptake in the past couple of quarters, essentially on the back of the fact that there is a better return now on FDs and on saving schemes, as opposed to investing in mutual funds, which could be more volatile, and therefore people who are traditionally conservative are looking at these saving schemes as long-term options.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Guaranteed return schemes are going to, work wonders in these countries, in these economies like India, where a lot of people are actually not very confident about their future, and a lot of people are above 50. They are looking for stable income. They cannot really trust their money, and moreover, substantial parts of it with the stock markets or mutual funds, who don't want any exposure of this volatility. And so these guaranteed return schemes, they will work. Look at all of them. Look at the rush for the FDs that the rising interest rates have garnered. And now people are actually, if you look at the discussions, common people, they are actually worried as to when the decline of the interest rate cycle is going to take place, which is perhaps the third or fourth quarter of this year. And so people are trying to put in as much money before that interest rate again starts to decline. Interestingly, we already have 2 or 3 banks or 4 banks who are actually cutting down slightly on the interest rates on deposits which are within 3 years of maturity. This has happened over the last 10 days, and some of the banks which have done it include the PNB, the Bank of Baroda, I think the Axis Bank, and perhaps HDFC. I'm not very sure on the last name. So, people are actually trying to, if you offer them anything, assured return, they will just gobble it up. Shweta, there is no doubt on that.
Right. Right, Avijit. My colleague Amit Ranjan is also with us here in the studio. This sounds well. This is positive news coming on the back of the fact that more and more women are now taking to Mahila Samman savings certificate, an upward trajectory, movement there, momentum growing, which means that about 3,666 crores have deposited in the first 2 months itself, Amit.
Yeah, and it's all good news. I would like, taking on from Avijit, I would like to see the breakup of rural and urban, because the average deposit is 73,000, which is quite a lot of money, and I do not know if so much of that much of money rural women will have in their kitty, but we would like to look at that. The big thing is it is going to boost the National Small Savings Fund deposits, and it will ease the pressure on the government to borrow from the market to make up its fiscal deficit. So that is the big thing.
Right.
So with the money coming in into post office, which is a government it will ease more pressure onto the government. And okay, carrying on from our yesterday's thing, quite a few things are falling into place for the Indian economy right
Absolutely,
now.
quite a few things falling into place there. Krishna also joining us at this point in time. Krishna, good morning to you. We're discussing these very two important savings schemes. One, of course, being the senior citizen scheme, where the limit was extended from 15 lakh to 30 lakh in this budget. Also, the Mahila Samman savings certificate, for the very first time, a new scheme introduced which gives you an interest rate of an upward of approximately 7%, better than many FDs would give you. And what schemes there seeing greater uptake from people both in rural as well as urban India? And specifically, I think, alluding to Amit's point, it seems that there is also momentum not just from rural India but also from urban India.
Right. The fact of the matter is that the women's savings scheme, to be specific, you're talking about numbers and total amount of money put in. It has found 500,000 takers. 500,000 women have taken to this government's new Mahila Samman small savings scheme, and 500,000 women have come forward in the 1 year since it was presented in the budget. So that is a telling statistic of the fact that the government really identified a need over here, and also these are very important measures that can provide financial independence to women and financial empowerment to women. And that is very crucial. That, really is in a sense, re-engineering society and taking away the imbalance in society when it comes to holding wealth and saving wealth and using them for their future. That has been predominantly man's domain in this country. And it's measures like these. It's the ability for women that, there's a government-backed savings scheme. We can put money, it's safe, our money will not go anywhere. In fact, the returns are as good as what some of the other financial products in the markets are able to give. And hence, it makes women. Shweta, we live in a country where less than 20% of women are in the workforce. And in a situation where less than 20% of the women are there in the organized workforce, how will they take all the money that they earn from so many unorganized ways and make sure they build a safe financial future? You can keep talking about women's empowerment, Women's Day, etc., but it's moves like these that are really Women's Day, that are really, doing something for women in society, Shweta.
Right, Krishna, and of course, there is, as I mentioned, there's an increased uptake, as much as 500,000 women going for the Mahila Samman certificate there, the scheme that is going to give them higher returns, perhaps going to be less volatile, and these are fixed interest savings schemes. So, of course, there is more trust there on these schemes, and good news there for the government also, because it's getting more and more money as opposed to borrowing it from the market. Avijit wants to come in at this point in time. Avijit?
Yeah. I have a small point to make. If you scan the Jan Dhan accounts, I think there are more women, holders of Jan Dhan accounts than men in our country. At least last year, I saw it in the RBI report. So if one can go through it, one will definitely find a very, very substantial share of women account holders in the Jan Dhan kitty.
This is, come to think of it, this is very interesting because as Krishna pointed out,
basics of banking for India as a whole, men, women, cities and villages. So that is one move. But this is very specific. You're talking about a financial product, a saving scheme. So many financial products out there. People are complaining about the fact that you can't trust financial products. Men are not able to trust financial products. And then now you have a saving scheme that is a sort of financial product that helps women do it. So I think it's path-breaking in that sense, and the kind of response it's got has justified the government's move completely and more.
Come to think of it, I do want to come in here at this point in time, and I sort of agree with Avijit here, Krishna, because traditionally, even if there are less number of women in the workforce, traditionally women have been the savers. Traditionally, it's women who've saved, in small purses, under the bed, in the kitchen counters, in variety of places as they could find, and they have been the savers.
I fully agree with you.
Yes.
I fully agree with both you and Avijit, but the fact of the matter is that this is not under the bed. This is not in a trunk.
Absolutely.
This is an official savings scheme backed by the government, and you see the response. That's what I'm talking about. There was latent potential. There was huge latent potential. Women are the savers. They take money and hide it inside, jars of rice and jars of sugar and salt, and all the kitchen utensils possible, and etc., and underneath the bed and anywhere in the house. Did they have a government-backed savings scheme in today's day and age when every financial product is seemed flaky and markets are volatile? They would have bought gold. That's what they would do normally. The women would have taken the money and invested in gold, but now they have a government-backed savings scheme. It's sort of, this makes the women transact more, Shweta. That's where my focus is. When you have a savings scheme, you have to fill out a form, you have to transact, keep transacting, check on, the kind of interest that's been added to the amount of money that you've already put inside. This practice, this habit is what I'm focusing on. And I think this will lead eventually to greater financial empowerment and independence for women, is my limited point here. No question about the fact that they've been savers for centuries.
Absolutely.
In fact, they were the ones managing the money when the men were busy out making it.
Absolutely. Even as women have not been sort of equal participants and in equal beneficiaries of all the advancements that we've seen out there economically, and may not have a lot of knowledge as to what financial products are right to use. With traditional small savings schemes, it looks like women now have more trust in them and are going and getting themselves into the banking structure, into the formal banking structure. Augurs well. All in all, I think we can all agree that it augurs well for development, gender development. It augurs well for economic empowerment of women at large. Yes,
agree
Amit.
to agree.
Again, that I'm stuck on that 73,000. If it is true that rural women are depositing that much, it is good news that our rural economy is basically people have more money than we think that they have.
Okay, this is the annual figure that you're looking at.
The average deposit.
The average deposit.
I'm just stuck on that. So it's a quite a good figure.
Very interesting point of view there. But of course, we are short on time on this story, but very interesting point of view there. We will of course discuss this story at large in one of our evening shows, but we're going to shift focus for now. And Reserve Bank of India now seems to be, going through at the books of all the startups that are offering peer-to-peer lending. Essentially, after cracking down on apps that were giving easy loans, it appears that the regulator here is now cracking down on companies that may be facilitating peer-to-peer lending, may not be complying with all the regulations, all the norms in the books, Avijit.
Yeah, absolutely, Shweta. I mean, we have seen just in the past, and Google was in the news all over the papers, that how they have made stringent on online lending, direct lending, and these actually opened up a can of worms, as you know, and most of the apps have vanished over the last few weeks, if you have noticed. Now, the same thing RBI might be, they have actually touched upon a very, if I may say so, unregulated part of the economy. It's growing. It's growing very fast. Riding the internet boom. But the point is, how many of them actually comply? So this is an area which RBI couldn't have come in at a better time. In fact, they could have, if they have touched upon it earlier, I think they would have done it better. Because this way, a lot of NPS can build into the system, which are actually invisible to the naked eye right now. If you check the accounts of banks or even NBFCs, you can see them. But this sort of lending, you never know how it takes place, who gives it to whom, and it almost takes place in an invisible manner, I think. Shweta, we have to look out for this, but I'm not very sure how things are going to shape up. But the RBI's concern is 100% genuine, and it should have come perhaps even a bit early, Shweta, I think. I would like to hear the views of two of my colleagues here, because this is really unfolding at quite at an early stage now.
Okay.
Krishna is smiling. Yeah, I think. Yeah,
interesting inputs there. This could potentially lead to greater NPAs, and this is where RBI needs to be focusing right now. What RBI is looking at, Krishna, and what we're given to understand on the basis of the news reports that are out, that they are looking at a flow of money. Where is the money coming from? Where is it going? The risk assessment, the partnership models, essentially, how does the peer-to-peer lending works? I want to understand from you, and for the benefit of our viewers, what is the concern around peer-to-peer lending?
Also, Shweta, just a moment, money laundering. I think that will be another area of concern, money laundering.
Money laundering. Interesting. Krishna?
Fair enough. Wherever this flow of money is concerned, Avijit, I guess we'll have to talk about, there has been an eye on money laundering. It could be any way. That's the same thing that happened with all the loan apps. Remember, Shweta, we're talking about 275 Chinese loan apps, digital loan providers apps that are already under the scanner we've been speaking about already. This is just taking it a bit further, because this is about P2P lending, which is peer-to-peer lending, which means there is no financial institution even that is, specifically speaking, that is, doing the lending. You're talking about a company, a startup, which coordinates with another consumer-facing app. For example, Bharat Pay, Jupiter, and Cred are among the major consumer-focused applications with which some of the famous peer-to-peer lending apps. Let me name a couple of these famous P2P lending apps. Liqui Loans, Lane Dane Club. These are some of the most famous P2P loan apps, and they have built partnerships with Bharat Pay, with Cred, with Jupiter, and the RBI now wants to understand what is this partnership all about. Are Bharat Pay, Cred, and Jupiter doing enough to make sure that the startup at the time with all that processes are clear? So the RBI wants to nip things off in the bud right from where it begins. You have a P2P lending app which ties up with a consumer-facing app like Cred or Jupiter or Bharat Pay and gives out loans. And how, from where the money comes and how it goes through to Bharat Pay, because Bharat Pay will turn around and say, this is not my money, it is coming through some other startup. You have to go check with the startup. And you got to check with the startup. No, I at the end of the day sold it through Bharat Pay. So please check with Bharat Pay. So, the consumer is left left high and dry. The consumer is the person taking the loan is the one who's under maximum amount of trouble. So in that sense, they want to plug the leak, plug the issues anywhere it could possibly be, and check the system. It's largely gone unregulated. That is the problem over here. And through the pandemic, you're seeing the need for cash, immediate cash, which needs to be coming in as a loan, increasing with every passing day. Young people, people from 20, 25 years of age taking loans online without too much knowledge about what these apps are. What is Lane Dane? To people who take loans from Lane Dane Club, beg your pardon. The name of this app is Lane Dane Club, a P2P lending app. Do kids 20, 25 years of age who are taking loans from Lane Dane Club know what the Lane Dane Club is all about? Do they know what Liqui Loans, another P2P app, do they know who's Liqui Loans, who owns Liqui Loans, all about? So it is essentially an awareness and awakening that this exists. First of all, most people don't even understand what is P2P lending. The RBI has identified P2P lending, the mushrooming and the growth of P2P lending. Now it wants to make sure that it's regulated properly and doesn't go the Chinese loan app scam way.
Absolutely. And before I go to my colleague Amit here, I want to come to you, Avijit. There is a growing underlying concern, and that is with respect to RBI also trying to crack down on the fact that many sections of the society, especially underprivileged, going for these P2P platform where you have a lender who charges exorbitant price and exorbitant interest rates, and they are the ones who are governing the disbursal, the collection, the evaluation process. So overall, there needs to be more oversight on the debt market.
Absolutely. This is almost going back to the Shylock days digitally. I mean, the bottom of the pyramid is definitely more vulnerable to these sort of pressures than the urban educated middle class perhaps, who have two lines of defense. One is knowledge. You actually have a second look as to who are you taking from, what are the terms, and in case of default, how does the lender react? So perhaps you are looking through all this, and then again you are trying to reevaluate before taking the loan. But what about the bottom of the pyramid? They have everything at the click of their button, and they don't know anything beyond that click. They'll just click, get into the trap, and then perhaps lose everything what they have. So it's definitely all these oversight, all these regulations need to be strictly enforced. That's very simple, because with the digitization of the economy, the need for regulation has perhaps increased rather than decreased. The digitization doesn't mean that there are informed borrowers. This is very crucial. In fact, it can mean that there are more casual borrowers rather than informed borrowers, because everything is so easy, everything is so accessible. So if the RBI thinks that it's going to, subject it to this segment to further regulation, more intense regulation, and more intense crackdown, it's, I think, all the more welcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Amit, what we're looking at essentially here is a startup, which is a P2P startup that does not really do anything more than facilitating a lender and a borrower to transact with one another, and therefore takes no responsibility either for the lender or for the borrower. All in all, it is not a fail-safe situation. It's a situation where both the borrower and the lender are to lose if the the intermediary says there's nothing more that we can do. There's no other responsibility that we'd like to shoulder.
I think Avijit nailed it on the head when he said going back to Shylock days. This is the flip side of simplicity. Going to a bank, people have the idea that you have to fill a whole lot of forms and all that. These startups are providing that simplicity. The flip side of it is you are getting the money, but the pound of flesh is the difficult part.
Right.
And that is where I think, and startup is in India, they have basically mushroomed so many that the laws are basically, there is a time gap. So they are basically just catching up. And I think the RBI, what it is doing, it is very necessary right now to basically nip the further problems that these kinds of basically transactions may pose. The facility that the startups are providing is very, very good. Simplicity is always good. But the flip side, that is what I think it is necessary the RBI should take care of, and it is.
RBI is trying to nip it in the bud before it becomes a bigger problem, but P2P lending there, all the platforms that are facilitating, including Cred, BharatPay, all of them have got a questionnaire that RBI has sent out for them to fill as to what the process is, asking them to clarify on various questions. Questions have been asked and answered. We will, of course, try and get you more details on that. But shifting focus now to another important story that we are tracking, and that is by the way of ONDC as a platform that has now launched a business-to-business transaction facility on its platform. Now, ONDC has been in the news for a very long time for the fact that it has made lives of consumers easy by facilitating retailers to directly transact with customers as far as selling goods and services is concerned. But Avijit, from the latest information that we're getting now is that it is allowing the e-commerce network is now allowing businesses to transact with one another. To simplify it, if I'm a small business operator, I can use ONDC to connect with a wholesale retailer to get my products.
Yeah, again, this is perhaps the India carrying forward the India stack story. I mean, we have seen that triggering so many business ventures, and I think this opens up a completely new domain. You see what it did to the food delivery business. This can actually happen on a much larger scale among the businesses, and more important, the unorganized sector is actually going to benefit from it, because over the last 3-4 years we have seen a lot of the quote-unquote animal spirit in the economy being unleashed. Now, as these animals start running, you need these sort of crutches. I mean, they need to be handled, and this is in the period. If you look at the period of the economy we are going through, the India stack is going to help a lot of our entrepreneurs, and I think this is just the beginning, where, in a sense, the bottom rung of our entrepreneurs, those who develop small businesses, especially over the internet, depending on the internet, they will get a head start in building the ecosystem on which such businesses essentially need to survive.
Okay. I'm short of time, so I'd like to quickly get in Krishna's response on that. Krishna, we discussed this yesterday. This is a story of India Stack, how India is facilitating new platforms for not just e-commerce, but for many businesses to rely on and to transact and do their business easily.
Right. The thing is that we just discussed the India Internet Report yesterday, Shweta, which said that in 2030, the India's internet economy will be worth $1 trillion. And it's going to be driven by a 13 to 14-fold increase, 13 to 14 times increase in B2B e-commerce, as in business-to-business e-commerce. It's very clear. Business-to-consumer e-commerce, like your Amazons and any app that you buy stuff from, that e-commerce is also going to grow 5 to 6 times. But double that growth is going to be the growth of B2B commerce in India over the next 5 years to 6 years. Keeping that in mind, the focus of ONDC on B2B is absolutely spot on. And as I've always been saying, China's internet economy was built on the foundations that Alibaba gave, and Alibaba began as a B2B platform. And India does not have an Alibaba. Maybe ONDC can provide some answers, hopefully.
Absolutely. ONDC, Amit, could be India's Alibaba.
Yeah, and taking on from what has already been said, what the government is backdooring through this is basically making everything transparent and basically taking care of what it wants to most, corruption. Okay. So if everything comes online, business comes online, transparency increases, corruption goes down. All right.
It is a story of India increasingly going to internet, increasingly digitizing. We will come back to it. But for now, Honda Cars is our next big story that we're tracking because it's premiered its new SUV. Krishna, how excited are you with Elevate? We are given to understand that it will be sold in India first. Bookings are open and price announcement is yet to follow, but a very premier looking car there.
Right. Honda, has been in a bit of a laggard when it comes to the SUV space, and we know that the entire car business in India, the car market in India, is being driven by the growth of SUVs, Shweta. Because, for example, in the last month's auto numbers, if you see, Maruti, India's largest car maker, saw the sales of its mini cars, the Espresso and the Altos, fall by 30%. And its growth was driven by the SUVs, the Maruti Grand Vitara, Brezza, and all the other cars. So SUV is the space when it comes to India, and Honda does not have a blockbuster product in that space. It has the Honda City, which is the all-time classic, which continues to be the all-time classic for the last 2 decades, if I may. So it's great it has a Honda City, but in the SUV space, the Honda doesn't have a dominant product that can, compete with the likes of Hyundai or Kia or Maruti for that matter. And, on MG you have in the space. So Honda with Elevate, hope it can elevate its status, as an SUV maker in India, Shweta.
All right, so Honda's big bid there by the way of Elevate. We are given to understand that the bookings will start now. The price announcement could be around festive season. Honda, they're looking to re-enter the SUV market. There is a positive, momentum around this car. There is a positive chatter. We will, of course, have to see how the booking numbers turn up. It will start coming month, that is the month of July, and Honda there looking to re-enter the SUV market, which by the way seems like is already brimming with new offerings from Tata to Mahindra. So tough competition there for Honda in the coming weeks and months ahead. Gentlemen, with that, we'll have to leave it at that. Thanks very much for watching News 9.